All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Sylvester Stallone Fan Podcast Network episode where three hosts from three different podcasts join forces to talk about a Sylvester Stallone film that is pretty much not Rocky or Rambo. So I am Ryan from Going the Distance, the Rocky Series podcast.
I'm Doug. I'm from the Rocky Minute podcast, breaking down the Rocky movies 1 minute at a time.
Yeah, and I'm Craig from the Sylvester Stallone Fan Podcast Network and sometimes the Slycast.
Far less frequently.
Well, Craig, you do have something coming up which should be out before this episode reaches the podcast feed. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we're doing on the Slycast, and you guys were both a part of it. November is a big month in Rocky anniversary history, or at least November 2020. I believe a couple of days ago we had the anniversary of Rocky 5, its 30th, and in a couple of days we're going to have the 35th anniversary of Rocky 4. So we'll be putting out a dedicated episode for each movie. Rocky 4 will come first, which will include discussions with you and Doug separately, as well as Mike Kunda, who we always love, having a part of the Slycast. And on Rocky 4, we'll also be talking to Rocky 4 superfan Greg Troyan. And then for Rocky 5, again, you and Doug separately, Mike Kunda and myself. Both episodes will also have some listener-contributed content. Got a couple of emails from listeners, and then also I think we got one or two audio recordings. Like Brian said, I'm not sure when this episode's going to hit the network feed, but it will be after the anniversary shows hit. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. I just got to finish putting the finishing touches on the editing and make us all sound a lot smarter than Rocky.
Oh boy, that's tough to do. Guys, we put this up to vote, and this was a close one. Basically, the Judge Dredd of the three was the throwaway vote. People did vote for Judge Dredd, but that was a far distance third between The Expendables Part 1 and Demolition Man. And just so you guys are tracking, on our Facebook poll, Expendables and Demolition Man tied. So it was up to Twitter to break the tie. So basically the Facebook poll was void. It didn't count because it was a tie. So we went to Twitter to break that tie, and this won by like 3 votes or whatever. It was a very small margin. We almost had 100 people voting total, so that's pretty cool.
It's a good thing that Judge Dredd didn't win, because Craig might have had some Vietnam flashback of editing that monster.
Well, I wouldn't have had to watch it again. That would have been the only good thing.
I'm kind of excited that Demolition Man won. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it's one of those movies that I feel like I've seen so much when I was a teenager and a young adult. I thought I remembered it differently than the rewatch. Well, let's first talk about the first time you saw it. Now, Doug, we know Doug didn't see any Sylvester Stallone movie in the theater, so we know he didn't see this in the theater. Am I correct?
I never saw anything in the theater that wasn't a Star Wars movie.
That's fine.
I did watch this a bunch, in my younger days. I always loved this movie. I haven't watched it in a while. Not like super long time ago. Maybe about 2 years ago I watched it, but I haven't seen it a lot between my younger years and that. I just enjoyed it as much as I used to.
Okay. Well, I did see it when it came out in the theaters, 1993, October. It was just before let's see, do some math here. I was 17 when I saw it, just about turned 18. That was the first time I saw it, and I bought it on VHS, watched the dickens out of it, and I don't think I ever bought it on DVD, funny enough, so I've seen it, I guess, on streaming or TV since then, because I never bought the DVD of this. Craig, what about you? You probably saw this in the theaters, I presume.
I think so. I know I was in college. Probably my best memory of the time this movie came out is, I think on Wednesdays, that was like my treat myself to lunch on college money budget. Go to Taco Bell on Wednesdays. And I remember the tray liner, the Demolition Man tray liner with Sly and Wesley and the cup and everything. If I was actively in college when this movie came out, there's a good chance I didn't see it. I didn't see a lot of movies when I was in college, at least in theaters. This one I probably saw when it first came out on home video, and it's one I watched a lot. I actually have this as part of a really cool, I think it was like a 4-movie set, 4 Sly movies, and it was 2 discs, 1 movie on each side. I think it was Over the Top, The Specialist, Tango and Cash, and Demolition Man.
Oh, wow.
Because when I sat down to watch this, I put it in. The first thing I heard was, let's do this. And I was like, oh, wrong side. And I had to flip it over and get Demolition Man.
Oh, let's do this. I got that ringing in my head. That's funny. Well, this is the 4th and last film from that box set that you own that we are now doing as a Stallone Podcast Network. That's funny because we've done the other 3 films. Quite the collection. Yeah, interesting.
I can throw that DVD out now.
Much like our podcast is garbage. I like the film, don't get me wrong, but it's funny how much I found wrong with it. Now, it doesn't mean I didn't like the film, I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed it as a movie. It's a fun watch. I understand it's a fun watch, but I seem to recall, if I were to go back in time to 1993, 17, almost 18 years old, a huge Sly mark, as they say. I was a huge Sylvester Stallone fan. I mean, I'm the biggest Sylvester Stallone fan. And I still am, but as a kid, I just worshipped him as a teenager. And I knew that he was coming off the dud of Stop or My Mom Will Shoot that came out in 1992. So I knew as an action fan, an action movie fan, Sly was in dire need of a hit, dire need of a commercial successful hit. Previous, though, just before this film, Cliffhanger was released first of the same year. So he had a really big year in 93, a really big comeback year. Cliffhanger, as we know, it's got to be top 3 non-Rocky Rambo film franchise film of Sly's career. A lot of people would argue
Cliffhanger was 95, wasn't it?
No, it was 93.
No, whatever year. Yeah, the same year as Jurassic Park, because I remember we went to go see Jurassic Park, which was sold out.
94?
So we went to see Cliffhanger.
It must have been 94 then.
No, 94 was Daylight or something close to that.
If only there was a machine that can settle this argument.
If there were real Sylvester Stallone fans on this podcast.
So 93 was Demolition Man and Cliffhanger. It was a big year for Sly.
Can't wait to prove you wrong.
Okay, please do. Please do.
It definitely wasn't 95.
God damn it, he's right.
Yeah. If Ryan's dependable for anything, it's doing the research, the bare minimum of the research. Ryan, you had mentioned Cliffhanger. I think outside of the 2 main franchises, it's probably Cliffhanger, and then you can't underestimate Cobra as well. And Cobra underperformed, I think, for an R-rated movie, but in terms of Sly awareness, I think Cobra is pretty high up on people's list in terms of movies they talk about if they were going down their, list of Sly movies that were non-Rocky or Rambo.
Right. It's funny that we haven't covered Cobra yet. It's weird. It's one we've kind of just... I figure no matter what poll we put it on, it's going to win. I think that's why I haven't put it on a poll, is because...
I agree.
Yeah, the moment...
It's a runaway. We would just have to say this month we're doing Cobra, and that's it.
You know what would be an interesting poll? 1-for-1 would be Cobra versus Party of Kitty and Studs. So it'd be interesting to see which one wins that.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that to us?
You bring that up so often. I think you want to do Party of Kitty and Studs.
What, don't you? Don't you want to see Stallone's Cobra?
Does Andy V have that one on?
Oh, probably
on digital.
Oh, probably.
So Ryan, you had mentioned, and I know we're going to get into the rundown of this. You had mentioned looking for problems in this movie, and I mean, the biggest problem with this movie is the concept. And once you get beyond the concept of the movie, you can sort of go along for the ride. But I don't understand what society would think a cryogenic. It's almost like, let's just freeze him and let somebody else worry about him in 70 years.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. This film, if it was made today, would have been a $123 million budget, which actually for a big time action film, like if this was made today, that's a small potatoes for a budget. 123 is a very feasible or nominal amount. However, it did make its budget back. It doubled its budget with today's dollars, $256 million worldwide. So not a bomb, a 2-for-1 investment, not bad.
If anything else, I think its biggest legacy is it basically gave us Dennis Rodman. Mm-hmm. Dennis Rodman clearly, I think even in The Last Dance, he talks about it, the influence of Simon Phoenix on Dennis Rodman. Like, Dennis Rodman was a normal dude until he saw Demolition Man.
Oh, weird.
He went off the deep end.
Well, I don't know if he was a normal dude, but I mean, he was... He
does credit Simon Phoenix as his inspiration for the wacky hair.
That's awesome.
And Wesley Snipes hated it, so that's the irony. The moment the film was stopped, he shaved his head.
If you think about the 2 big stars at the time that command high salaries, plus all the pyrotechnics I think they spent $2 million just making prototypes of futuristic cars just so they can use in this movie. Like, that budget does seem pretty small compared to what it could have been.
I don't think Wesley Snipes was a huge. I think he was commanding huge salaries. No. I mean, it was after that he got Passenger 57 and Murder at what, 4,200?
1,600. Before this, it was Major League and White Men Can't Jump, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but both of those movies are kind of, I guess, White Man Can't Jump probably gave him some clout, but
Jungle Fever, New Jack City.
Oh, yeah, those are big.
Oh, Nino Brown, man. That's timely, too, because he was giving out turkeys on Thanksgiving.
With WKRP in Cincinnati.
Not the turkey drop.
I love that episode. Very good point about Wesley Snipes. I remember seeing this, and I certainly knew who Wesley Snipes was. All the films you guys just made, I mentioned, I had seen. I think every one of them you've mentioned, I saw before seeing this movie. But I wasn't a Wesley Snipes fan. I just happened to see a lot of movies when I was a teenager. I was a video addict. I went to the movies and I went to video stores all the time, but I've seen all those movies. And so it was fun to watch Wesley Snipes. I remember enjoying his performance. And I also remember, and of course on this rewatch, again, we're seeing a bit of a co-star kind of outperforming Sly a little bit.
I think Sly brought his game up a little bit in this one. I mean, if you want to talk about the comedy of this compared to the comedy of Stop or My Mom Will Shoot,
that's good.
I thought he was great in this. I thought his comedy timing and his deliveries were much better.
Yes.
Wesley Snipes, you could say, yeah, he stole the show from Sly, but I wouldn't put Sly that much past him.
No,
Wesley Snipes he's a charismatic dude. Yeah. Anytime he's on screen, he's pretty much the focus.
I agree totally with Sly's comedic timing and what have you was way better in this than. Partly because of the writing, but it was way better than Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. It's just, again, with the fight sequences, it's always now watching Sly fight. I guess I'm so jaded by the James Bond movies of today, the Jason Bourne movies, the Matrix, all these John Wick movies, fighting styles that we see. Watching Sly kind of just do the same gut punch.
Yeah. But it's not like this. You have to think of the time like this. The action back then wasn't in the fights; it was in the explosions and the blood squibs and everything. That's what action was. Now, the fight choreography is incredible now.
It's crazy.
But back then, I mean, I don't know. It didn't distract me that much, except the obvious stunt doubles in a few scenes.
What are you talking about? Speaking of stunt doubles, Wesley Snipes wanted to do all of his stunts, and they filmed Snipes doing all of his stunts, but they actually ended up refilming it with the stuntmen anyways after Wesley had did his stunts.
Well, I heard he was so proficient at his.
They had to slow it down.
Yeah, they had to ask him to slow his kicks and his punches down because he's like a black belt in some martial art. I didn't know.
He's legit. I mean, if you watch this movie and then you go and watch, especially the first two Blade movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The level of martial arts there is beyond, just learning moves for a movie. There's logic to it. It doesn't feel forced or doesn't really choreographed. And I think that's something that completely performer dependent. You compare the martial arts that Wesley's doing in these movies to like what Keanu Reeves did in The Matrix.
Well, he began training when he was 12. He's a 5th degree black belt in Shotokan karate and a 2nd degree black belt in Hapkido. Wow. He's also trained in capoeira and a number of other disciplines, including kung fu and.
Wait, kung fu's a thing?
Yeah, Brazilian jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. Wow.
So he's no slouch.
He's no joke.
Too bad he didn't have a black belt in paying his taxes.
It's a black belt in the evasion. Yeah, I had no idea that he was that proficient as a fighter. Okay, I don't know why I didn't know that. I mean, it translates well on screen. He's very good with his movements.
I didn't notice it in the film, but there's a number of kicks that the director had to get him to slow down because it was like a blur on film. Once he slowed it down, it looked kind of clunky and, not natural. I didn't catch any of that, but.
Well, it's interesting that you speak about kicks because, as you guys probably read, this was supposed to be a Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal vehicle.
Yeah, but neither of them wanted to play the villain.
Expendables Part 2, which we reviewed, Van Damme did a great job as a villain. And it's too bad he didn't have the confidence to play a villain at this point in his career. I guess he was kind of on his way out of the big screen movies. I think it was shortly after this he did like Double M, or what was it called? The one that he did with Rodman. Speaking of
Sudden
Rodman.
impact.
No, he did one with Rob.
Double team.
Double team. Sorry, a little play on words with the basketball. So Van Damme didn't want to be the bad guy, which is too bad because in 2012 he showed us just how good of a bad guy he plays, and it's too bad he didn't have the confidence to. It's weird how actors back in the day didn't want to turn heel when they're seen as the good guy. Even further than that, Sly actually approached Jackie Chan first to play the bad guy. And so Jackie Chan, had he accepted it, would have said yes. He would have done it because he was the first choice by Sly, and I guess whatever Sly wants, he probably gets. But Jackie Chan turned it down because he too didn't want to play a bad guy. It's different nowadays. Nowadays people love playing the villain, but back then it was kind of like, ooh, I'm gonna wreck my career if I'm seen as the bad guy.
Yeah,
I think people just didn't want to be typecast in any way. But I don't know, if you're a hero in 4 straight movies in a row and you play a bad guy, I don't see that doing anything damaging to your career. It actually shows that you have a greater range and it makes you more marketable, I think.
But it would have been interesting to see a Jackie Chan or Van Damme at the time. And I think if Van Damme had played the villain, I guarantee you this box office would have almost been doubled at that time. The wow factor of having these two juggernauts on the screen together, I think it would have just pushed it that much because it was a Stallone movie. It was no one really went. Not very many people went because of Snipes. I would say 90% of the audience went because it was a Sly movie. But can you imagine the Van Damme fans would have gone too? It would have increased the box office revenue,
especially two big giant stars like that. Two action heroes.
Did Doug sound like a robot to you too, Ryan?
Yeah, just say that again, Doug. Sorry. Oh, where did Craig? Are you getting him? Okay. We can't hear you, Doug. We'll let you know when you come back in. So Craig and I will keep going. It's okay. Craig, you're still there?
Oh, yeah, I am.
Okay.
I was going to say, have you seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, there's that whole thing where his agent is basically telling him, you can't keep taking these roles where you're the villain on a TV Western because people aren't going to say that's Rick Dalton. They're going to say that's the guy that got his butt kicked by Maverick on Saturday night.
Oh, good point. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the director. I couldn't believe this, but this was the guy's first film. His name was Marco Brambilla. So he's an Italian-Canadian director. This was his first movie, but he came on a suggestion by David Fincher because both directors were big-time, big-budget commercial directors. So David Fincher actually recommended Marco to Joel Silver. I think I heard something there, Doug.
Yeah, is this any better?
Yeah, we're hearing you now.
I mean, how's the quality, though? Because I'm using my computer mic.
It's fine. We hear you. Our tens and tens of listeners will suffer. It's all good.
Is that what happened the other day, Doug?
Yeah, I don't know what the hell's up. Like, it just must be a bad wire or something.
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, it crackled away, so it might have been, yeah. Funny enough, since this film, his next film was Excess Baggage with Benicio del Toro and Alicia Silverstone. And that was his last movie as a big film. He's just gone on to do other stuff, documentaries and stuff, but he never really kind of worked in quote-unquote Hollywood again.
Imagine your first movie having to reel in the ego of Sylvester Stallone.
Well, do you want to talk about that? Another movie with more issues on set?
I didn't read that much was attributed to him, except not getting along with Lori Petty, who was first cast as Lenina.
That's right. So Lori Petty, people might recognize her from Tank Girl. She also does many starring roles in other...
Point Break.
Point Break, that's right.
League of Their Own, Point Break.
Orange is the New Black, she had a role in that as well, if you watch that on Netflix. Yeah, she didn't get along with Sly, but also Sandra Bullock mentioned that Sly was difficult to work with. She just said he was like that big brother, and I kind of see it because Sly, at the time of this film, was 47. Sandra Bullock, this was like her 5th movie to be in, but this was her first major film. And she was 29, so she herself was kind of a late bloomer to the Hollywood scene. And she actually didn't get popular because of this film, because we know right after 94, Speed came out. That was the movie that pushed her over the edge for stardom.
There's something involved in the plot that really annoyed me about her age. He was supposed to have a daughter in this, who, while he's cryogenically frozen, his wife is addressed. Somehow she dies, but his daughter's never spoken of again. It turns out that she joins Dennis Leary's Edgar Friendly's crew.
The Scraps.
And
they're called
Scraps, yeah, the Scraps. So she joins his crew, and John Spartan's supposed to meet her during one of the scenes, but the test audiences didn't like it because, in turn, when he hooks up with Huxley, the test audiences didn't like the fact that he's hooking up with a girl who's roughly the same age as his daughter. So they cut the daughter stuff instead of the love story crap. So if you're going to cut something, I think the daughter plot line is far more important than him and Lenina hooking up.
That doesn't make sense. He was frozen, was it 36 years?
6 years, yeah.
And there's no way that Sandra Bullock or her character, Lena Huxley or whatever, there's no way that she even looked close to 40. She was 29 at the time of filming. She looked 24, 25.
Hooking up with a girl younger than his daughter.
Oh, I see. Okay, roger that. Okay. Then that would have been, I guess, an issue. Yeah, all right. But do you guys want to talk about Sandra Bullock's performance overall? Or how she was in the film? Did you enjoy her?
She got a Razzie for this.
Yes, she did.
I thought she was great. I thought she was funnier than Benjamin Bratt, than Rob Schneider.
How dare you, Rob Schneider?
I thought she was good.
Rob Schneider was awesome. I love his funniest line. His line that made me laugh the most is it's a stupid throwaway line, but
we can just wait for another code to go red. And when Phoenix performs another murder, death, kill, we'll know exactly where to pounce.
Great plan.
Thank you.
He likes your plan, Chief.
I don't know why that was funny. It's the way he looks like he's 3 feet tall too. Every scene that Rob Schneider was in, he played like a dwarf. Did you notice that? He looked like he was 4 feet tall. He might just be a short guy.
Look big.
Yeah, that's right. They had Rob Schneider on his knees. So Rob Schneider actually he had a smaller role than I remember, but he actually ended up, as we know, co-starring with Sly again in Judge Dredd. I thought for a second there we were going to have like a Laurel and Hardy with these two guys. They're going to do like a film career together, the Rob Schneider-Stallone connection.
I don't know if both those scripts he had in both hands and he dropped them and they got mixed up. And his agent called and he's like, "Which one are we doing? We can only do one." And he's like, "We're going to do it." And they're like, "Which one?" And he's like,
"The one with Rob Schneider."
It's amazing to me. Yeah. The one with the annoying sidekick. It's amazing to me that he did these two movies close together like that. Sandra Bullock, I mean, her character, I think her performance was good. The character, it was funny because you think about nowadays and the access people have to researching pop culture. You know, they didn't know about YouTube when they made this movie because YouTube didn't exist yet.
Okay.
So like all of her references would have been exact instead of, you know, this secondhand information she had about how you would say, take this job and shovel it. When you take it outside of what we know about being able to research past stuff today, it worked. It definitely would have been a different movie without that character.
I love Sly, but boy, it seems like he's either got backstage issues with some actors or directors, or there's always like some sort of plagiarism around his films. He had it with Cliffhanger. Well, he's had it with, I can't name it off the top of my head, but he had it again with this one. No, yes. I'm not going to say this was his fault, but he always seems to be somehow tangled in the genesis of the film. So this story was proven by an independent review of a book called, I forget the name, it was a Hungarian book or whatever it was, but it was about a terrorist and a counter-terrorist. This was written like 1940s or something, 50s, maybe at the 70s at the latest, but it was a terrorist, counter-terrorist, and they were frozen in time and released in the future, and it was a utopian future, and it was them with that conflict of living in a violent, free future going against each other. And this independent review discovered that the book was 75% similar to the movie.
Wow.
But the reason why the author didn't sue or go after damages is because he knew, the author actually said that it's too costly for me to go after this big conglomerate of a company. And then he says, I know exactly who took my story. And that leads us to Lenkoff, one of the writers, this guy named Lenkoff. He came out of nowhere, quote unquote, came up with this story. So do the math.
The other writer, one of the other writers, though, I guess he came in as a script doctor, was Daniel Waters, who wrote Heathers Put Him on the Map. And he also wrote the adaptation of The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. He was a big writer for a while.
I would assume 90% of our listening audience, when this comes out on our audio feed, I would assume 90% of them know the film. So we haven't really talked about the plot. I think it's almost kind of redundant. But maybe for the 10% of you who listen to our movie reviews, and there are some, my mom's one of them. She probably hasn't seen this film. So long story short, it's 1996. It's Los Angeles. Simon Phoenix has, supposedly, he's taken 30 people hostage in a bus. Apparently, he's occupied a part of Los Angeles where he kind of runs the show, because he says the post office workers know that don't come here. The police know not to come here.
Where are the passengers?
Yes, the passengers. But passengers are gone. See, I told the city, I said, look, nobody comes down here. Postmen figured it out. Policemen figured it out. But the goddamn bus drivers just wouldn't Listen.
So he's kind of like taking control of an area of Los Angeles where it's so bad, it's so corrupt that even law enforcement doesn't go there. Then he says, but the bus driver doesn't seem to know not to come here, saying that's why this bus drove through his part of town. So he kept them hostage. But Sly's character, John Spartan, apparently he used a thermal imaging camera to check for bodies in the building, and there was no sign of 30 bodies anywhere. So he assumed that in the building, those that were there, because there were people there, which is weird, he somehow assumed that the people that were alive were people that were armed gunmen for Simon Phoenix and not the 30 hostages. So he went in full throttle as the Demolition Man, because his style of taking down bad guys is destroying all things around him. For example, he saved a girl that was a hostage in a mall by destroying a $7 million mall to save a girl who had a $25,000 ransom.
How can you justify destroying a $7 million mini mall to rescue a girl whose ransom was only $25,000?
You lady.
Good answer.
So that was his nickname. He's the Demolition Man, because where he goes, destruction follows, but at the end of the day, the greater good is served. So Simon Phoenix knew that this was the style of John Spartan, his arch nemesis of 2 years. So he lures in John Spartan. The bodies, unbeknownst to John Spartan, have already been killed, and they're in the building. So when the building explodes, the bodies are found, and everyone just automatically assumes that these bodies were killed by the explosion.
Damn it, John, I'm tired of this Demolition Man shit. You are not supposed to come down here. You are not supposed to attempt the arrest of Phoenix single-handed. And you are not supposed to blow anything up.
That's not me this time, Haley. He dumped the gas and rigged the place to blow.
Yeah, right. You had nothing to do with it. Now, I know you've been trying to nail this psycho for 2 years. But try remembering a little thing called official police procedure. So where are the hostages?
They're not here.
What do you mean they're not here?
He must have stashed them someplace else.
So how do you know they weren't in there? Are you sure?
Because I did a thermal check and there was only 8 of them, all part of his gang.
Wrong again.
Hey, you got something to say, scumbag?
Captain, over here. The bodies everywhere. There must be 20 or 30. They're everywhere. See that, Captain? I told him. He said he didn't care. Oh, my God. How could you sacrifice all those innocent people for little old me? We spent a lot of quality time together. See you, sweetie. Honey! Sugar!
You got a lawyer, you better call him.
Did he get Rudy Giuliani as his lawyer?
No forensic evidence, apparently. Look, I've seen enough CSI shows, and Doug, you're a cop, right? So there has
that is a fact.
Yeah, there it is. So there has to be evidence, meaning they can easily tell, even after an explosion, was this body dead during the explosion or before the explosion? All they have to do is check every person's lungs. Is there ash and stuff in the lungs from the explosion? Because there's no way not everyone was incinerated like a nuclear bomb. They would have breathed in the explosion, but they were all dead. So none of their lungs would have had inhale of... Anyway, so not one autopsy was done, apparently.
Forensics would have cleared him 100%.
Easily. We don't see it.
Simon Phoenix's testimony too, where he said, "I don't care." I mean, Simon Phoenix is a credible witness, obviously.
Yeah. And speaking of John Spartan's wife, it was a deleted scene, but Simon Phoenix apparently killed John Spartan's wife while he was en route to... So unbeknownst to John Spartan at that time, wasn't that what happened? Did I read that wrong?
It's just such a terrible scene. It deserved to be deleted.
Okay. So that's the setup. So the setup is...
Yeah.
So John Spartan is going to be cryogenically frozen for 70 years for putting 30 people's life in danger.
John Spartan, you've done great deeds for the city of Los Angeles. So it is with some regret that I, William Smithers, acting as assistant warden, hereby carry out this sentence.
Skip it.
Sergeant Spartan, you've been sentenced to 70 years, sub-zero rehabilitation in the California Cryo Penitentiary for the involuntary manslaughter of 30 innocent civilians. You will be placed in cryostasis for the duration of your sentence, during which your behavior will be altered through synaptic suggestion. You'll be eligible for parole no earlier than the year 2046. I'm sorry, Sergeant.
And of course, Simon Phoenix is going to jail for the same amount of time for putting those people's lives in danger. So they're both going to be frozen in time.
Can we talk real quick about how cool that opening shot come over the Hollywood sign that's in flames?
Sure.
I mean, how much of the budget was just that opening scene?
Probably a little bit. The helicopter.
Yeah, and that's
cool.
a huge explosion too. I think that was a building that was probably designated to be destroyed.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that was the demolition of that building was filmed for the movie. I didn't catch it, but there was word that you could hear some crew members cheering when the building was destroyed.
It was the director. The director cheered.
Was it?
Yeah, it was apparently it was Marco. Yeah.
Ole!
Ole!
I don't know any Italian.
That's the spicy building. Apparently, it was an MTV winner that got to hit the
Oh yeah. Press the button for the explosion.
Can you
It's
imagine?
probably a dummy button. Had nothing to do. Had nothing to do with the explosives.
Of course, somebody else was on the master switch waiting for him to push the button. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was a cool explosion. It was a big explosion. They basically covered the walls and everything in gasoline too.
So there was flames before it went down. That was huge. It was impressive. Yeah. I will say that. Very impressive.
That's what I love about those practical effects of the 90s. Some things don't age well, but the practical explosions are so much better than CGI explosions.
So absolutely.
So Sly gets cryogenically frozen, and of course he was nude for this. Apparently, they created some very good lifelike frozen Sly stat. You saw those when he's frozen, like a clear carbonite for like Han Solo frozen, but clear, whatever that is, clear gel. It was really kind of cool, that liquid that they put in there. Do you know what kind of liquid that was in real life that they put in there? Weird, slimy. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like...
Yeah, like KY jelly kind of?
Yeah. And Sly actually swallowed it to spit it out on the glass. You see that? And he goes, yeah. And he spits it out on the glass. It's kind of a cool little effect there. He said it was about 5 hours he was in that thing, and it was actually... He had no problem being nude, but he made sure that the statues were large in the junk area, is what the director said.
I think that was at Planet Hollywood. I know our friend Matt had pictures of it. It was the Planet Hollywood here in Las Vegas. I've never really gone that deep into Planet Hollywood.
I've never eaten there. I've
eaten at the one in Times Square in Manhattan.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. What did you have? You remember?
I remember the Cobra Car. If I know me, it was probably a hamburger.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's the default.
Burger and
fries.
Burger, fries, and a beer.
Yeah.
So he's frozen, and then Simon Phoenix, though, he has his parole hearing, which I love. I love the idea that they have a parole hearing for someone who has no ability to act or show that they're ready to go back into society. What's the point of a parole hearing when you're cryogenically frozen? You're like this for 25, 35 years. How do I prove that?
They're supposed to be getting rehabilitated.
Right.
I have to go back to the warehouse scene real quick because something was gnawing at me like throughout the first 5 minutes of the movie, and I wonder if it gnawed at you guys. When Simon Phoenix punches a hole in the gas cans, and then he holds that butane torch right over the gasoline and is like, oh, I'm going to drop it. If that was gasoline, just holding the flame that close above it would ignite it.
Yeah.
It's the fumes that are explosive.
Put that heat next to that flame. That's your ignition. Not the flame, but the heat from the flame. So anyways, yeah, that would have lit that close. That would have gone up easily. But anyways, it's a movie. But I know. I love how he's like, I know. He's so close to it. But I remember seeing that as a teenager. Of course, it's just water. But I remember thinking even as a teenager when I saw that, like, come on, dude, that's really close. Like, you're just being stupid.
Yeah, I mean, as the filmmakers, do a little fact checking before you pull stuff like that. I don't know
why they don't do that. I don't know why they just don't do. You just hold it in the hand. You can still hold it with the blowtorch. We get it. You might light us on fire, but you don't have to put it next to the fumes to know that we know that it can light with flame. We know how gas and flame works. We understand the principle. Anyways, okay.
All right. So back to the
parole hearing.
So while they're in cryostasis or whatever the hell it's called, they have these head pads that are kind of wired right into their brain, and this is how they're getting rehabilitated. How does it work? They personality analysis and figure out like how to use their own personal strengths and knowledge and what kind of rehabilitation program to put them on. So they chose knitting for John Spartan for some reason. So that's how you're supposed to be rehabilitated. When your parole hearing comes up, you're supposed to, I guess, prove that you've been rehabilitated by talking about whatever program they're wiring into your brain.
If Spartan had his parole hearing, what does he do? Knit them a sweater and he gets released from prison? Like, I don't understand what he would have said.
a few different loops and knots and whatever. I don't know.
Well, I'm ready to go back to society because I can knit a sweater overnight.
Thank you for the lovely gift.
Look, I don't know what you guys put into my cryo slush, but when I thawed out, the first thing I wanted to do was knit. I mean, how come I know what a zipper foot and a shuttle and a hook and bobbin and a petty point is? I can weave a throw rug right now with my eyes closed.
It's part of your rehab program. For each inmate, the computer draws up a skill or trade which best suits their genetic disposition. And it would implant the knowledge and the desire to carry out whatever training was assigned.
I'm a seamstress? Oh, that's just great. I come out of cryo prison and I'm Betsy Frost. And Phoenix comes out and he can access computers, operate all vehicles, knows the location of every damn thing in town, and is 3 times stronger than when he went in. Can you give me Phoenix's rehab program now?
Sure.
I mean, that's what we're shown that he can do, but I don't understand how that proves he's ready to go back into society. It was a cool concept, the idea that over time they subliminally basically rewire the brain. That's the idea, is they're programming the brains of yesteryears to make that fit of today's society, which is in the future now, 2036, whatever it was. All of society, at least in this, what was it called again? San Angeles or whatever this district was called. It was a combination of Los Angeles.
Oh, San Angelo.
You see, we have become a society of peace, loving, and understanding, and we are, quite frankly, not equipped to deal with this situation.
There have been no deaths of unnatural causes in San Angeles in the last 16 years.
The Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, San Diego Metroplex were merged in 2011. You are in the center of what used to be Los Angeles.
That's great.
San Angeles.
Yeah.
It's kind of shown in A Clockwork Orange, the way they try to rewire a criminal's brain. I guess it's the same kind of concept. How the hell does Simon Phoenix get a parole hearing before John Spartan ever would?
Well, we know he was released on purpose by the guy that created the society. That's how. It was issued from above. That's why he said teddy bear. Teddy bear was the password to release the locks, and that's why the guard goes, how did you know the password? And Simon Phoenix goes, I have no idea.
Mr. Simon Phoenix, one of our first and most illustrious members. Allow me to welcome you to your parole hearing. Let's get this one over quick. 29 years ago, the parole system as you know it was rendered obsolete. Federal Statute 537-29. Stop it! Do you have anything fresh to say on your behalf? I thought not.
Yeah, I do. Teddy bear.
How do you know the password to the cuffs?
I wish I knew. Simon says die.
And then he starts killing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question, but the answer is...
It was engineered that way.
It was engineered that way, yes.
Okay.
What was outside of this area? What was the world like in China, Oregon, New York? Was this unique to this area? Was the rest of America on board with this? This was the biggest problem I had with the film. A movie like The Hunger Games, for example. This movie was an hour and 55 minutes long, by the way, guys. I haven't looked at The Hunger Games Part 1. I haven't looked at the time length, but I'm just using this as an example. The Hunger Games was about a society in the future, and we all, if you don't know about it, just Google it. But The Hunger Games was able to, in its first movie, create a world, and we understood what was happening worldwide in a very clear narrative. So what this movie was lacking, in a big way, was, yes, like you guys said, just ignore everything else and just watch the events of this area, and I get that. Kind of like Escape from New York. I wanted to know, what was the world like? Because he talked about, like, oh, now I can have my perfect society and everything. Like, there was no explanation how this community of millions were all on board to be Stepford wife type behavior.
Excellent point.
I was really interested in the story of how the society really got. They talked about the big one in 2010, but the last murder, 2010.
So you're going to start the petition to do the Demolition Man prequel? Demolition Man, Cocteau, or whatever his name was.
We're led to believe that Cocteau, they merged Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, I think it was.
Yeah,
Santa Barbara and San Diego, which, combining to this San Angeles place. Well, I think we were all led to believe that Cocteau was only in charge of that district.
Yeah, there's no indication what the rest of, even just the rest of California, the rest of the. So as I'm watching this, I'm just thinking it would be impossible to reign in all of America or any country for that, but to be like this. There's just no way you could eradicate evil. Now, but they did it. But I was interested in how they kind of hinted at it. They said, well, because it's just better to not be that way.
That's great. Yo, give me a Marlboro.
Yes, of course, right away. What's a Marlboro?
Just a cigarette, any cigarette.
Smoking is not good for you, and has been deemed that anything not good for you is bad, hence illegal. Alcohol, caffeine, contact sports, meat.
Are you shitting me?
John Spartan, you are fined 1 credit for a violation of the verbal morality statute.
What the hell is that?
John Spartan, you are fined 1 credit.
Bad language, chocolate, gasoline, uneducational toys, and anything spicy. Abortion is also illegal, but then again, so is pregnancy if you don't have a license.
Because we know that evil, or quote-unquote free will, still existed because the Scraps, who weren't a part of this society, they fought against it. They wanted their own free will. They literally lived underground, metaphorically, to escape this Stepford wife society.
So it wasn't sort of like a mind meld type of thing. It was just slowly converting society into a crime-free. If you want to know how the sausage is made, you're going to upset yourself. You just got to go into it trusting the process.
I didn't think of it at the time in 93. We're kind of leaning towards this type of don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, don't want to be too mean, don't want to say anything too bad, don't want to express anything that's kind of off kilter, because they lived in it, as we see at the end, this Stepford wife type of everything's just peachy with no conflict. There's no identity, there's no art, there's nothing, there's no music. As you can see, they didn't even create art. I thought it was an interesting commentary on just how out of pain comes art and music and movies, but they had lost all of their art. They were just living.
Right. You went deep on this movie, man. I like that.
Because I feel like, oh man, there's a lot to say here. And this actually could have been a Clockwork Orange or even like movies like RoboCop. Again, RoboCop explained the breakdown of their society very well in a 2-hour movie. It's just weird how they were unable to in this 2 hours, where other films have done it even before this. Like RoboCop was way before this, like 6 years.
Dude, RoboCop is like another level of filmmaking, though. I mean,
I know
we shouldn't even be having the same discussion about RoboCop and Demolition Man. Like, seriously, RoboCop's like a top 5 favorite movie for me. I mean, it's
awesome. It's
next level filmmaking.
I'm not saying it should have been a gritty film, but I think there could have been some sort of expose at how this happened. We get how it's enforced. We're seeing how it's enforced and lived in, but we never see or understand how it got there.
One of the interesting parts of this film, because a lot of futuristic films, like you just mentioned RoboCop, and even more nowadays, it seems like the common theme is when you make a futuristic movie, it has to be a dystopian future. But this one here seems to be utopian. Everybody gets along. They don't even swear. It's utopia until one guy that wants to rule it all, he sees like a fly in the ointment, so he wants to have him kind of extinguished. So he unleashes the most ruthless murderer of all time on him. You know, this is a glimpse at a utopian future, which you don't really see much because it doesn't really make a fun story, does it?
No, but that's a good point, Doug. Why not just have like 6 of the cops put friendly in a jail cell and your problem solved?
It's weird. Yeah. It's weird. So yeah, the Scraps, who's led by Edgar Friendly, played by Dennis Leary, in a very weird role.
That whole casting was just so he could do that bacon and cigar the size of Cincinnati monologue.
So you think you're taking me in, huh? Guess what? Not happening. You tell Cocteau he can kiss my ass. Yeah, that's right. You tell Cocteau it's going to take an army of assholes to get rid of me because I don't give a shit. I got nothing to lose.
I don't want to rain on your parade, pal. But I don't know who the hell you are, let alone want to take you anywhere. So stay here, be well, and Cocteau's an asshole.
Let's take him and dump him up top. They're only down here to spy on us.
What do you want?
I guess you weren't part of the Cocteau plan.
Greed, deception, abuse of power, that's no plan.
That's why everybody's down here?
You got that right. See, according to Cocteau's plan, I'm the enemy. Because I like to think. I like to read. I'm into freedom of speech and freedom of choice. I'm the kind of guy like to sit in a greasy spoon and wonder, gee, should I have the T-bone steak or the jumbo rack of barbecue ribs with the side order gravy fries? I want high cholesterol. I want to eat bacon and butter and buckets of cheese, okay? I want to smoke a Cuban cigar the size of Cincinnati in the non-smoking section. I want to run through the streets naked with green jello all over my body reading Playboy magazine. Why? Because I suddenly might feel the need to, okay, pal? I've seen the future. You know what it is? It's a 47-year-old virgin sitting around in his beige pajamas drinking a banana broccoli shake singing I'm an Oscar Mayer wiener. You live up top, you live Cocteau's way. What he wants, when he wants, how he wants. Your other choice? Come down here, maybe starve to death.
All right, then why don't you take charge and lead these people out of here?
I'm no leader. I do what I have to do. Sometimes people come with me. All I want to do is bury Cocteau up to his neck in shit and let him think happy, happy thoughts forever.
And I got bad news. I think he wants to kill you.
It was a classic Dennis Leary rant. They had to rewrite Edgar Friendly's part so Leary can fit in like his ranting.
That was like his a-hole routine. A-hole was a big thing for him. That was totally his shtick, and it took you out of the movie because you saw it coming too. You're like, oh no, here it comes.
That's just it. We're watching.
Yeah, Leary being Leary.
Yeah, we're watching a Dennis Leary routine.
I said better Dennis Leary than Dennis Miller. Yeah. You know, Dennis Miller, you would have gotten like just a string of big words that nobody understands.
There's a few comics that have the same kind of shtick. You know, Lewis Black is the same way.
Oh, let's recast Friendly with just different comedians. What about Stephen Wright? Remember, you guys remember Stephen Wright?
Yeah, but that would have been totally deadpan the whole time.
Mitch Hedberg would have been great.
Yeah.
Just one-liner after one-liner.
Emo Phillips.
Remember when they went down to the underground? John Spartan and Lilina Huxley, they go, and Benjamin Bratt's character, they go down to the underground to confront Edgar Friendly, and they had a beer and a burger joint there.
Rat burger, yeah.
Yeah, it was a rat burger, but they were up above on the street stealing food. And I'm kind of like, hey, you guys got a pretty good deal down here. You got rat burgers, you got beer, you know, and I don't know, but I guess you could have stole that food and they prepare it down there. I guess that's what they done. Did you guys notice who was standing next to Edgar Friendly during his rant?
I didn't know.
Jack Black.
Oh wow, yeah, early Jack Black.
No speaking role,
wow,
but yeah, he was standing next to Edgar Friendly, and he did like a couple Jack Black like smiles at Edgar Friendly's rant, and that was it. That was his big part. And speaking of cameos that were butchered, Jesse Ventura, what do you think of his big part in the film?
If I remember correctly, his role was substantially reduced because from what I understand, there was a big final fight, got completely cut out. You don't know what happens to any of those goons. No. They just like disappear.
There's a fight. Stallone and Ventura actually filmed the fight that got cut out. Come on. You've already got an hour 55 minutes. Just give us that fight. Even if it's just for 2 minutes. It's a weird thing to cut out. Poor Ventura was probably pissed. I would have been. But his name was in the credits, but he literally had no role. Another deleted scene was Phoenix actually killed the black cop he was the one that flew the helicopter at the beginning of the film. And then he was goes, oh, John Spartan, I haven't seen you since. Yeah, he was the pilot of the helicopter that flew John Spartan in 1996. He was now kind of an older cop at the station. So he was killed. That was a deleted scene, but he was killed by Simon Phoenix. It's funny, they toned down the violence in this film, which is weird because the movie's rated R anyways. I don't know why they didn't just keep the gore in. They had more than one F word in it, which makes it rated R. It was like quite a bit. And then the violence was just enough to be kind of violent. They should have went balls to the wall like Total Recall.
Or any Verhoeven film.
I was just going to say, Verhoeven, I mean, that's next level filmmaking. He's a brilliant, brilliant filmmaker. And I don't think many people had his sensibility when it came to, if you're going to do something, just do it. And, you know, in the case of RoboCop and Total Recall and even Starship Troopers, do it too much.
Like, this movie's rated R. We'll get to the simulated sex scene, but there's actually multiple nudity shots, though brief. They're there. There's cursing. There's violence. There's eyeballs on a pen. It's oddly violent without being violent, but it's like, if you're going to be R-rated, well, you've already got the rating. Just go with it.
Yeah. And, I mean, it was produced by Joel Silver, so Joel Silver was completely doing those kind of movies, you know, violent movies. I mean, he produced the Lethal Weapon movies. But I guess as time went on, the Lethal Weapon movies even got less explicit in terms of the violence.
Sean Malloy, he sent me a link of this very review. I don't know why he did that, but
Of his Demolition Man review?
No, of ours. He sent us the link of our episode. I don't know if maybe it was a mistake, but thanks, Sean. I was going to give Sean a shout out. He does the I Must Break This podcast, but he sent me the link of our actual review, so I'm not sure. Anyways, they should have gone balls to the wall with this film with the violence because the movie was already rated R. Why not show the violence? A lot of the violence was off screen. We saw a scene with Simon Phoenix mowing down like scientists in the freezing facility. He mows them down. I would have liked, I don't know, I kind of would have liked to seen them get, I don't know. You're doing it.
Pulling out the warden's eyeball, they filmed something more graphic than that. I mean, they already show him holding the eyeball on a stick. Why not go the extra mile? The only thing I can maybe think of is that it's not Stallone's brand. And,
until Rambo Part 5.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And Rambo Part 4. But you're right about maybe with that time. But it would have been, again, if I was the director, I would have thought that would have made it that much more cooler. Is showing this utopian society that's so clean and pristine and so good. And then having Simon Phoenix going there just gutting people. It would have been like, whoa.
Yeah. You know what I think was a really good exploration of that idea, though, was when Simon Phoenix is first unthawed and they cut to like the live shot of the cryo chamber. I think everybody in that scene showed how appalled they were by what they were seeing. They'd never seen somebody murdered before. I thought that was a really, really effective scene. It probably would have been a lot more effective with increased violence. I really got to commend everybody in that scene. The direction of it really sort of sold the concept that this was uncharted territory for them.
Let's talk about the simulated sex scene.
Do we have to?
Yes, we do. Sly loves his sex scenes with his leading ladies.
Honestly, I'd rather see this kind of sex scene than one like in The Specialist.
Well, what I loved about this is we only saw his imagery and not hers.
Yeah.
You know,
hers. Yeah.
Do we see him moaning? Yeah, we saw him moaning.
No.
We did see him pursing his lips. Didn't we see him pursing his lips? Ooh.
Don't ever do that again.
Sly. Ooh. They got me all excited for Party of Kitty and Studs review. So.
Oh, Jesus. Somebody put a leash on this guy.
Oh, that leash scene. That's a good scene from Party of Kitty and Studs. Okay. So anyway, for our listeners who maybe have forgotten, I've blocked it from the memory. In a kind of a fun comedic moment, Sandra Bullock's character says to Sly's character, "Hey, do you want to have sex?" And she says it in a very matter-of-fact way, the way you would, would you like to have a cup of coffee?
John Spartan, there is, of course, a well-known and documented connection between sex and violence. Not so much a causal effect, but a general state of neurological arousal. And after having observed your behavior this evening and my resultant condition, I was wondering if you would like to have sex.
With you?
Mm-hmm.
Here? Now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Great! I'll be right back.
That's a fun little play on the idea of sex. It's just, this is what we do. We feel pleasure without any kind of awkwardness. So it's like, okay, in a weird way, it's kind of forward thinking. It's like, yeah, we can have pleasure. We can feel pleasure and it's not awkward. But it's something I want to share with you. So that's fine. That's a kind of a forward way of thinking. Of course, he's thinking like a 1993 person or a 96 person. He's like, oh, okay. And he starts, checking his breath and fixing his hair while she's getting ready. That's a good comedy, And then she comes out with the machines, puts them on the heads, which is equivalent to today's VR, which they didn't have VR back then, but had they done that today, it would have been goggles over the eyes. But it was like a brain implant he puts on his head.
What's wrong? He broke contact.
Contact? I didn't even touch you yet.
But I thought you wanted to make love.
Is that what you call this?
First sex has been proven to produce higher orders of alpha waves during digitized transference of sexual energies.
All right, Huxley, what do you say we just do it the old-fashioned way?
Ew, disgusting. You mean fluid transfer?
I mean, boating, the wild mambo, the hunka-chunka.
That is no longer done. The exchange of bodily fluids, do you know what that leads to?
Yeah, I do. Kids, smoking, a desire to raid the fridge.
The rampant exchange of bodily fluids was one of the major reasons for the downfall of society. After AIDS, there was NRS. After NRS, there was UBT. And one of the first things that Dr. Cocteau was able to do was to outlaw and behaviorally engineer all fluid transfer out of societally acceptable behavior. Not even mouth transfer is condoned.
Kissing's not allowed?
Oh.
Damn, I was a good kisser.
Oh.
All right, what about kids?
Procreation?
Yeah.
We go to a lab. Fluids are purified, screened, and transferred by authorized medical personnel only. It is the only legal way.
I think I've ever seen on screen or even in my psyche at the age of 1993, the idea of sex simulation, of a visual and audio simulation. And the scene still to this day, it's not like it's graphic, but it's pretty. The comedy ends because sexy images play out. It's not funny anymore. Now it's kind of like weirdly gross again. Like Doug was saying, you got a sly person his lips in pleasure, and then you see a naked torso of a female, full on naked, breasts and everything. We know it's not Sandra Bullock because, well, it's just a fuller body than Sandra's. Takes off the helmet really quick, like. It's like, this is too much, this is weird, and she's like, what's the problem? And then, of course, the funny sequence of, like, we kiss and where I'm from, and we exchange fluids and all this stuff, and they talk about procreation's done through labs, you need a license for it.
Oh, it was right out of the 90s, just the flashing images of her. I'm glad it was a lot more toned down than we saw in The Specialist.
It made more sense than the seashells.
So he goes to his room, and he turns on the TV, and we get at some early technology. There's a lot of technology will come to fruition in today's time. First, the sex simulator, as we know. Oculus is working on that stuff right now. Virtual sex. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're working on... We got the audio visual down, but I guess they're going to work on things that you can... touch and attach. Yeah, so virtual sex is on the horizon. Secondly, he's in his room and he's turns on the camera and somebody Zoom calls in on him, but she's naked. And it's the wrong number. So she video calls her boyfriend. Oh, sorry, wrong number. And she covers up. So she's naked on camera, which again is common today on people's phones. So that was a little bit of a future prediction that came true.
And they even had the aspect ratio correct as well.
Yeah.
It was portrait mode.
And another future prediction that came true was the Zoom call. They had a Zoom meeting. So this, in 1993, you see this meeting. Everyone has their own head on a screen, and there's a person talking to them all on screen. And back in 93, when I saw this, I was really, oh, whoa, that's crazy. They could have a meeting from wherever they are virtually. I don't even know if I used the word virtually. That wasn't a word back then. But they can do their own call from wherever. That's crazy. Nowadays, that's absolutely normal, especially in COVID now. It's absolutely normal.
I just like the fact that the screens turned as the speaker would walk around the room.
Facebook has that portal. It's like their Zoom, but it's an actual piece of hardware, and that will actually follow you. It'll do like voice tracking.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that. Speaking of COVID, they predicted the germs. Don't touch hands. For the high fives, they did the air rub. So a lot of interesting things, quote unquote, have come to fruition just through whatever.
Let's not forget the shortage of toilet paper too.
The shortage of toilet paper, yes. And that was a clever scene when there was no toilet paper, so he swears at the machine to get all those tickets.
Yeah, I love that.
Look, I don't know if you guys know it, but you're out of toilet paper.
Did you say toilet paper?
Oh, they used handfuls of wadded paper back in the 20s.
I'm happy that you're happy, but the place where you're supposed to have the toilet paper, you got this little shelf with 3 seashells on it.
He doesn't know how to use the 3 seashells.
I can see how that could be confusing.
I don't believe it. I'll be right back. Thanks a lot, you shit.
For repeated violations of the verbal morality statute.
So much for the seashells. See you in a few minutes.
I love that part.
Do you know how the seashells are used?
Yeah, somebody within the last year, actually, there's a little like cartoon that pretty graphically shows one is for scooping, another is for
sense.
It doesn't.
Take 2 shells. They're all separated. There's 3 of them. But yeah, you kind of squeeze and pinch and pull away, and then you
stupid.
When Sandra Bullock was asked about it, she kind of said the way that the shells are laid out, like on the ledge or whatever, they look like buttons. The seashells are buttons like bidet controls, like the force of the stream, the size of the stream. So each seashell could be a bidet control.
Okay.
Instead of you pick them up and pull shit out of your ass. Which is ridiculous. It's stupid. The way the concept came up was the director was asked his other director friend, like, I need an idea for your futuristic bathroom. And the director's looking around his bathroom. He goes, well, I got a thing of seashells over here. And the guy goes, I'll make something out of that. Like, no, you don't make something out of that. Give me something. What you made out of that was stupid. 3 seashells.
It's funny. Have you ever seen seashells in someone's bathroom for decoration? Because I have.
Yes. Yeah, I have too.
That's funny.
Never use them for anything but decorations.
Talk about when he goes to the museum. Simon Phoenix goes to the museum to get weapons because weapons are a thing of the past now. We don't have weapons anymore. I love how everything's loaded. Why is this museum full of ammunition? I don't know. Is this another thing of like you don't place ammunition next to weapons? That's just weapon safety 101.
Because the plot tells you.
He had a working cannon? He lit a cannon.
Yeah.
He lit a cannon. He had gunpowder for the cannonball. Where did that come from? I love how we see we see that the cannon was used in the explosion of the wall, but I wanted to see the prep work. I wish that scene was filmed. Him putting the ball in, stuffing in the gunpowder, and then
Yeah. Now, Ryan, I know you love how meta movies can get. There's a few suggestions to it, but the museum is like the perfect jumping off point where he calls the mannequin Rambo.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Rambo, I need to borrow this.
Again, we have in the Tango and Cash universe. We talked about this. I don't know if you guys listened to this on my Creed episode, which I don't think you have, which is fine. But we mentioned that Adonis imitates the Godfather to Rocky. You follow me? So he does he does the Godfather voice to Rocky in Creed, and that would mean that that Godfather exists, the movie, in the Rocky universe. If the Godfather exists in the Rocky universe, Talia Shire is in the Godfather films. So the actress that plays looks like Rocky's wife.
Very meta.
Yeah, it's weirdly meta. And then not only that, Robert De Niro was in Part 2, and Robert De Niro was in a movie called Grudge Match and Copland with a guy who looks like Rocky.
Yeah, Grudge Match is all place meta.
Oh, that's a...
But yeah.
We talked about it check out our Grudge Match episode. I think it's probably better than this one.
But with the Jackie Chan nod too, it's Lenina, right? Who brings up the Jackie Chan movies?
Yeah, she learned how to fight like that because she watched Jackie Chan films.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Jackie Chan exists in this universe.
Anyway, where the hell did you learn to kick like that?
Oh, Jackie Chan movies?
Yes.
And Jackie Chan happened to be a friend of Stallone's at the time.
Yes.
The Schwarzenegger thing, can we talk about that real quick?
So again, Schwarzenegger was an actor who played in The Expendables, who played with... It doesn't work. You have too many,
it goes round and round.
Yeah.
I've been an enthusiast of your escapades for quite some time now. I have, in fact, perused some newsreels from the Schwarzenegger library, and that time that you took that car...
Hold it. The Schwarzenegger library?
Yes, the Schwarzenegger Presidential Library. Wasn't he an actor when you...
Stop. He was president?
Yes. Even though he was not born in this country, his popularity at the time caused the 61st Amendment, which states that...
I don't want to know. President.
At this time, they hated each other.
Well, they were extremely competitive, yes.
Yeah, right.
They were rivals. They were rivals. I don't think there was actually...
Yes.
Yeah.
I would hate Arnold Schwarzenegger if he trolled me into taking Stopping My Mom shoot. I would hate that.
That's fair.
About the 61st Amendment, where it allowed Schwarzenegger to become president.
When he became governor of California, they pushed an amendment to allow him to run for president.
Called the Arnold Amendment.
Yeah. Crazy.
I freaking love this stuff. It's so weird.
But Lenina makes a comment about Spartan's quippy one-liner outside the Taco Bell after he beats up the Scraps guy. Oh, man, I didn't even write it down. Do you not know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
she said... The joy, something that you said to him before you... Oh, damn it.
I'll insert it. Don't worry about it. You'll be saved by my editor.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
What the hell?
Such reckless abandonment. Looks like there's a new shepherd in town.
That sheriff.
You are even better live than on Laserdisc. And the joy way you pause to make a glib witticism before doing battle with that strangely weapon scrapped in those roundhouse punches.
Hussey, look, this isn't the Wild West, okay? The Wild West wasn't even the Wild West. Hurting people's not a good thing. Well, sometimes it is, but not when it's a bunch of people looking for something to eat.
Another little funny line here, Sandra Bullock's character to Sly said, for a 74-year-old, you're not that bad. And funny enough,
how old is he now?
He's 74 right now.
He's 74.
Talk about meta, right? That really threw me off. I was like, holy crap, that is Sly right now, 74. And he's doing a movie right now, an action movie called Samaritan. So it'll be interesting to see how he moves for a 74-year-old guy. I remember seeing this movie as a teenager. Now, and the idea, if you were to tell me, you'll see Sly in the future, Ryan, in 2020 or 2021 in a movie called Samaritan when he's 74 years old, I would have been like, what? I couldn't imagine a 74-year-old Sly, but it's weird. Here we are. Did you catch Phoenix mocking the Chinese in the museum?
Specific information concerning objects.
Yeah. I'm surprised the score didn't do like a little ding, 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 ding. Like,
I guarantee you Wesley Snipes ad-libbed that. That wasn't in the script. Because he did a lot of ad-libbing. And his Spanish speaking, too, when he did that Spanish speaking, that was ad-libbed as well. That wasn't in the script. You couldn't film that today. It's always fun to watch movies from the past, just see, would that fly today? And no, they would not have allowed a racist ad-lib to stay in the film today. Did you catch his Ghostbuster ray gun at the end there? Simon Phoenix had that laser gun. Did you arbitrarily shot out lasers? And then he hits it against the wall and the lasers came out stronger? I called it the Ghostbuster ray gun.
Was that the one that he picked up in the museum?
No, it seemed to be something from the facility. It was like he used it as a weapon. It was like shooting electricity.
Oh yeah. And it was cutting things in half.
And
who the hell
there was a very, very terrible scene of John Spartan jumping away from it. It was so horribly shot. He only does like the bottom third of the screen. He goes, ee! He does like a really lame leap. You just know there's a big soft mattress underneath of it. Do you know the leap I'm talking about when he's leaping away from that laser gun? It's the corniest jump away from explosion I've ever seen. I know it sounds like we write on this movie a lot. I think in some ways it hasn't aged well just because this is what I love about Westerns. Westerns age well because there's no CGI. There's no special effects. It's horses, the natural land, and barns. You can watch High Noon today and enjoy it. There's nothing that really ages as far as the aesthetics of a Western film, right? So the problem when you do a futuristic film like Demolition Man, we're only 16 years away from the future that was depicted in this film.
First of all, it's interesting that the movie came out in, 93?
Yeah.
They set that terrible version of Los Angeles in 1996. Why not just transpose the whole thing, start it 50 years from now,
right,
and then have it take place in, the late 2000s or, the later part of this century?
It is interesting when they make films in the future. I mean, Blade Runner just did it again, 2049. I mean, that's only 28 years from now.
Or don't give the date. You don't have to give the date.
That's a good point. It's sometime in the future. And some movies have done that sometime in the future. And they're not so distant in the future as they say. Yeah. And that's what makes Star Wars good. It's being Star Wars. It's a long time ago in a galaxy far away. You just completely take it out. You can't compare it to our universe.
The final notes I had was about Simon Phoenix's death. First of all, a cool death scene, him getting frozen and then getting his head kicked off. Cryogenics was introduced in the beginning of the film. You knew it was going to come into play at some point. I forget the context he said it, but Simon Phoenix said that he'd lose his head if it wasn't attached to his shoulders.
That was definitely a callback.
Yeah, and Spartan says, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I swear, I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached.
I'll keep that in mind.
Dong, dong, dong.
The other funny thing is, what was Spartan's plan? Was he just, he looks up and sees that thing spinning around and grabs it. But prior to that, was he just like, I'm going to sacrifice myself to get Phoenix?
I don't know. Yeah.
He wasn't telegraphing it because he looks up and sees it and he's like, oh, I can grab this.
That was just to get his feet off the ground, right?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Because I guess that thing freezes outward, and once it reaches the end of what it's frozen, you can go back on it again. And it won't freeze you.
I'm gonna have to check the science on this. I'll get back to you.
It was a cool death scene. It was cool. The head being popped off and exploding on the ground. It reminded me of
hair freeze.
Why did it?
Why didn't it?
Didn't it freeze?
Oh, it was like the blonde hair was on top of the frozen.
That's his calling card. You can freeze that blonde.
One of the notes was nobody would know it's him if he didn't have the hair. That's the kind of stupid shit I could see a Hollywood executive giving after he comes out of the bathroom after taking like 2 bumps.
I think it would have been hilarious had the hair stay, like the head explodes in the ground, but the hairpiece still stays like a Lego hairpiece. Bounce it around. Okay.
Okay.
Well, there was talk of a sequel and a prequel. And the prequel was going to be John Spartan and Simon Phoenix, that 2-year war that they had with each other. There was a sequel talk, but the executives smartly decided that was going to bomb. So they didn't do that. But there was talk of a sequel, and apparently, as of late as May 2020, Sly has hinted at a Demolition Man 2.
No.
It's all talk.
Let it go.
Remember the streaming zombie squad we were going to get?
We should do a whole episode. Yeah. We should do a whole episode on Sly teases. All the things he's teased and never falls through with.
Just today, I saw somebody link to Stallone saying the only thing that would make sense for Rambo moving forward would be a prequel, a streaming-only prequel. Who needs it?
Matt.
I mean, like, seriously. Who needs it?
You get 100 movies and shows like that available to you.
Especially with Rambo, like, everything you need about that character is explained in First Blood.
Yeah, John Jay.
The prequels are always so effing heavy-handed that you'd have, like, Rambo would say, "You drew First Blood, don't push me, man." Like, it would just be a rehash of all the shit we saw in First Blood, but it would be like, oh, this is the prequel, so isn't that cool?
Yeah, I know.
At least the zombies one sounded kind of neat.
There's a lot of different directions you can go with that.
Yeah.
Prequels, you kind of write yourself into a corner. You only have so much lead time till you get into where we know the character when it starts.
They have to land on the starting position. Like, they have to get there. So Sly, we love him, but he is the king. He is the king of tease and hype and yeah. I think he just loves to create. I think his mind is always, oh, it'd be great if I could do this. He's the guy that if they had a serum that keeps you 35 forever, he would take it in a heartbeat. If you told Sly, look, I'll give you a serum that makes you 35 forever, but somebody you don't know dies, he would take it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, man. All right. Well, any closing thoughts there? We never got a sequel. We never got a prequel.
I love this movie. Unabashedly, I always have. One of the things that bugged me the most was the no resolution on his wife. And if you're going to have a resolution on his daughter thing, cut out the love shit between him and Lenina. You don't need it. I don't know why these movies have to, especially during this time. I did the last episode I did with Sean Malloy on I Must Break This podcast. They shoehorned a Dolph Lundgren love story into a movie that didn't friggin' need it whatsoever.
You don't think that was Dolph being like, "Hey, I want to kiss somebody other than my wife"?
Probably was. It probably was. But
was she naked?
But no. Oh. But she was hot.
Right.
But movies like this don't need it. You don't need a forced love story. They were great as a Martin Riggs and
there's no chemistry there. It was weird. When they kiss at the end, it was gross.
Yeah. Like, you have a buddy cop movie without the two cops hooking up.
Yeah, true.
So that's my gripe. Aside from how did LA get to be what it was in that moment?
If you throw out everything in the movie, it's a great watch.
Yeah.
This is the perfect example of a leave your brain at the door movie.
Yeah, they don't need a formula to stick to.
I enjoyed it too. I will say it was not a boring watch. It was reminiscent of my youth. I enjoyed it. Look, I knew going in I was going to have fun. So I think that's probably why I went a little bit more critical, because it would have been just too easy to say, oh, it's a fun, silly action movie. We all know it is. I get it. I guess there's the little part of me, the more mature movie watcher that I am today. I was like, there's so much. Once I went down that rabbit hole, is why is this society like this, and who else is like this? And it was hard to escape that. So every scene that happened, it seemed irrelevant to the big picture of what's going on this planet. Like, how do these guys get away with this society? Why is it like this? Or do they have carte blanche with America? Like,
it's the perfect example of a leave your brain at the door type of movie. This was peak Stallone, the 1, 2, 3 punch that you get with Cliffhanger, Demolition Man, and The Specialist. This was the height of his earning power, the peak of his physicality, probably, even though he was close to 50. This is the top of the mountain for him. I mean, after this, it starts to, you still get some gems like Daylight and stuff like that. But I mean, after this, this is the glory days that you talk about.
All right. Well, as always, guys, this is a pleasure. Let's close out with this again, saying where we're from. I'm Ryan, host of Going the Distance, the Rocky series and Creed podcast on the Stallone Podcast Network feed. Yeah, we're handling Creed Part 1 right now. We're almost halfway through, if not over halfway through now. Doug, exciting news. You're starting Rocky 2.
Yeah, if you guys are up on the re-listen on the Sylvester Stallone Fan Podcast Network, I just started releasing Season 2. We got our coverage of Rocky 2 coming at you as we speak. We're making our way through that, and, we got a bunch of episodes ready to go for Rocky 3. Got to keep plugging away at those. I got to reach out to Jay and start scheduling some recording sessions. Ryan, you're close, man. You're close.
I forget. What scene am I doing again? Is it Mickey's death?
Yeah, you're doing the Mickey death scene.
I don't even remember what scenes I did. I mean,
it's been so long, Craig.
I mean, seriously, that was like
a year, probably. It's probably.
I think I was still in my apartment when we recorded that.
Wow.
Yep.
It's okay.
You got the X-Lax watch scene, by the way.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. That's why I recorded so long ago with you. I got the early scenes. Yeah, I think I requested that, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You wanted the pinball and the
X-Lax watch.
Nice.
I mean, who would want to?
I just want to say, Doug, those aren't being released in vain. There are people watching, listening to it. So I've gotten word from people that I know personally that are listening that didn't listen before. So because it's on the feed, they're listening.
I know Katie's listening.
Yeah,
I know Katie's. I'm listening to your Creed episodes, by the way.
You are,
and it's duly noted.
It was at this moment that we had my computer shut down. I rejoined the conversation in the middle of their conversation, and so that's why it's so oddly jumped around here. All right, back to the show.
Look, we had nobody watching anyway.
No, it's weird. We didn't, which is weird because sometimes we do get a lot of people, or at least a handful, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. It'll all be fixed in post-edit. I have the audio. It's all good. I'm just saying, I think there might have been something I think my computer might have been having a hard time running Discord and stream it to YouTube. So what I'll do is just record it. And if it conks out, it's just us recording. I just tag the video together. It's not an issue. Okay. Take 2. Craig was saying that he was in Rocky Minute with Doug. And then I started saying, so for our listeners, the computer shut down. If you see it on YouTube, you'll see that it's shut down. We're just going to continue audio only here for the iTunes release. Doug mentioned that he does listen to the Creed episodes, which surprises me that he does. And he was about to tear me a new one because I know he's about to say. So, Doug, go ahead and say what you're about to say. I missed it, but you're just starting to lay it into me. So go ahead and tell me.
Yeah, it's very much on record. Duly noted. You find that you want more of me and Jay guests. Duly noted.
Yeah, so I said that. No, and I was wondering when you were going to hear that. I was like, either Doug listens.
10 years.
Yeah, I said 10 years from now, Doug will hear this. You took the spirit which was given, I hope.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course. And I mean, we've talked about it, a few times before, and I understand. But I also said after you kind of conked out was, I want to get more people that actually know the movie, that know the film, know the franchise, boxing, and instead of just other like minute by minute hosts. There's some of that early on, but I'm kind of moving forward, in a new direction with that as guest wise. So we'll get more intelligent discussion going forward. Wow, what a slap in the face to all our past guests.
Wow,
I don't know what to tell you.
I don't think past guests that aren't Rocky fans are listening to this feed, so I wouldn't worry about it.
True.
Craig, why don't you plug your show and your other podcasts? And I'm sorry to conked out during that.
As we talked about at the beginning of the show, hitting this very feed in the next couple weeks, although this isn't live, so at this point it's useless. Hitting this feed, so when you're done listening to this, go check for the 5th and 30th anniversaries of Rocky 4 and Rocky 5. I also mentioned, Ryan, that sort of fitting with the Rocky Minute on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Going the Distance on Saturdays, and then Slycast on Sunday, I'll probably start uploading to this classic from the archive Slycasts for people that want to listen to everything on this feed or haven't listened to the Slycast before. We'll talk about that. And then also I have another podcast that's once a month. It's the first Friday of every month. I'm looking forward to having you and Doug on individually. It's Conversations at Jackrabbit Slim's. And it's my Pulp Fiction podcast where every month I talk to a different fan of the movie. And so far, everybody I've talked to has been a podcaster. So it kind of has served two purposes where I get to talk with another fan of the movie, but I also help somebody promote their podcast. If you go into your favorite podcatcher and just search Conversations at Jackrabbit Slim's, you can find that. I think episode 6 was November's episode. So
I need to get on that. Over the Christmas holidays at the very least, I got a busy few weeks ahead of me, but come mid-December, I'll be free for like a month and a half. So I'm going to get on your show because I want to talk Pulp Fiction.
Awesome.
Likewise.
All right, guys, thank you. I apologize again for the technical difficulties, but for our audio listeners, they'll be none the white. Well, they'll know something happened because of the flow of the conversation. But if you happen to catch this on YouTube, I actually went to the end of it. I apologize, but I don't think that's going to be an issue for a lot of people. So, all right, guys, thank you so much.
Cool. Take care, guys.
Pleasure, fellas. Love you guys.
You too.
Yep.
Love you guys.
We're hanging up, right?
I'm hanging up. All right.
I don't know.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a good one, guys.
You too.